Chapter 1. A Night of Mistaken Passion. Aiden groaned as he stirred awake, his head pounding like a drum. The sheets beneath him felt softer than anything he owned, and the lingering scent of expensive cologne filled his senses. Something was wrong. His body felt strangely exhausted, a deep ache settling in his muscles. Slowly, he turned his head, and his breath caught in his throat. Beside him, tangled in silk sheets, lay Lucian Blackwood, the billionaire Enigma himself. The man was shirtless, his sculpted chest rising and falling steadily as he slept. His dark hair was slightly disheveled, a stark contrast to the cold, untouchable persona he projected in the business world. Aiden's heart pounded in his chest. What the hell happened last night? His mind was a mess, flashes of heated kisses, tangled limbs, and whispered words surfacing, but they were hazy, blurred by alcohol. He sat up too quickly, causing the sheets to slide down his bare torso. Oh God, I was with him. He was an alpha, and Lucian was an enigma. A rare kind of alpha, one with the ability to impregnate other alphas. The realization sent a cold chill down his spine. Did we? Before he could fully process, a deep voice broke the silence. You're awake. Aiden flinched as Lucian opened his eyes, piercing silver irises locking onto him with unreadable intensity. For a moment, something flickered in them, something raw, before his expression turned cold. This never happened. Aiden's stomach twisted. Excuse me? Lucian sat up, running a hand through his hair as he spoke with the detached tone he was known for. You will forget this night. You were a mistake. The words hit like a slap. Aiden clenched his fists, forcing down the surge of emotions rising within him. He wasn't expecting a confession of love, but this level of indifference. It stung. Pride kicking in, he threw off the sheets and scrambled for his clothes, avoiding Lucian's gaze. You don't have to tell me twice, he muttered, yanking his shirt over his head. Lucian said nothing, simply watching him with that eerily calm expression. The silence was suffocating. As Aiden reached for the door, he paused, fist tightening. A bitter laugh escaped his lips. You're right. This never happened. And with that, he walked out, slamming the door behind him, never once looking back. Little did he know, that night would change his life forever. Chapter 2. Unforeseen Consequences. Aiden had always been strong, physically, mentally, and emotionally. But for the past few weeks, his body had been betraying him. It started with the nausea, a lingering discomfort in his stomach that escalated to sudden vomiting spells. He brushed it off as food poisoning. Then came the exhaustion, an overwhelming fatigue that drained him even after a full night's sleep. His body felt off. The final straw came when he almost collapsed during a client meeting. His vision blurred, and a sharp wave of dizziness hit him. He barely caught himself against the desk. You look pale, his colleague remarked. I'm fine, Aiden lied, forcing a weak smile. He wasn't fine. With growing concern, he finally visited a doctor, expecting to be diagnosed with stress or some minor illness. But when the doctor returned with the test results, their expression was unreadable. Aiden, the doctor hesitated. You're pregnant. The room spun. Aiden blinked, convinced he had misheard. That's impossible, he whispered. I'm an alpha. The doctor gave him a knowing look. And you slept with an enigma, didn't you? His heart pounded violently in his chest. His mind reeled back to that night with Lucian, the way their bodies connected, the fire in Lucian's touch. No, it can't be. But it was. Aiden staggered out of the clinic, his hands shaking as he gripped the test results. He felt like the universe had just played the cruelest trick on him. What the hell am I supposed to do now? Someone's watching. In the following days, Aiden struggled to process everything. He kept the pregnancy a secret, trying to figure things out on his own. Yet, something else was bothering him. The feeling of being watched. It wasn't paranoia. Every time he walked down the street, every time he stepped into his apartment, every time he glanced over his shoulder, there was a presence. Unseen, but undeniably there. One night, he tested it. Instead of heading home directly, he took a longer route, weaving through unfamiliar streets. But the presence remained. Someone was following him. Heart pounding, he ducked into a dark alley, pressing his back against the wall. The street was quiet. The only sound was the distant hum of traffic. Then, for the briefest moment, he saw it. A silhouette standing far off, just at the edge of the shadows. His breath caught. The figure didn't move, didn't approach, just watched. And then, as if realizing they had been noticed, the presence vanished. Aiden exhaled sharply, gripping his stomach protectively. Who the hell was that? Lucian's hidden obsession. From the balcony of a high-rise building, Lucian Blackwood watched. His silver eyes followed Aiden's every move. The way his steps faltered, the way his hand subconsciously rested over his abdomen, the way confusion clouded his expression. Lucian knew. The moment Aiden stepped out of that clinic, Lucian had known. He had his ways. His influence stretched far and wide. The confirmation of Aiden's pregnancy had sent an unfamiliar surge through his chest. Possessiveness. He told himself he was only watching to make sure Aiden was safe. But deep down, he knew that was a lie. He was obsessed. Aiden thought he was alone. He wasn't. Lucian would never let him be. Chapter 3. The Billionaire's Proposal. Aiden stormed into Blackwood Enterprises, his heart hammering in his chest. He had spent days debating whether to tell Lucian about the pregnancy, but after what happened last night, being followed again, he knew he couldn't handle this alone. Why? If there was one person who needed to know, it was Lucian. The receptionist barely had time to stop him before Aiden pushed past security and barged into Lucian Blackwood's office. Lucian sat behind his massive desk, completely unfazed by Aiden's dramatic entrance. His silver eyes, cold and unreadable, flicked up from the documents in front of him. "You're pregnant," he said calmly. Aiden froze. His stomach twisted. He knows. His grip tightened around the crumpled test results in his hand. "How long have you known?" he asked, voice dangerously low. Lucian leaned back in his chair, fingers steepled. "Long enough?" Of course, Aiden should have known. Lucian Blackwood had his ways, his wealth, his power, his information network. But if he already knew, then why hadn't he said anything? Aiden slammed the papers onto the desk. "And you didn't think to tell me?" Lucian's gaze darkened. "I was waiting." "For what?" "For you to come to me." Aiden's breath hitched. The weight of Lucian's words pressed down on him, and for a split second there was something in those silver eyes. Something possessive. Then Lucian did something Aiden never expected. He reached into a drawer and pulled out a marriage contract. Aiden stared at it, his brain struggling to process. What the hell is this?" Lucian's voice was smooth, controlled. "Our marriage agreement." Aiden's jaw clenched. "Are you serious?" Lucian stood up, slowly rounding the desk until he was inches from Aiden. "Do I look like I'm joking?" Aiden's pulse quickened. This man, this untouchable, enigmatic billionaire, was casually proposing marriage as if it were a business deal. "This isn't a joke, Aiden," Lucian continued. "You're carrying my child. You're in danger." Aiden frowned. "Danger?" Lucian's jaw tightened. "I have enemies. Enemies who would do anything to hurt me, including targeting you and our child." Aiden swallowed hard. He wasn't naive. He knew Lucian wasn't just any businessman. He was powerful, and power always came with threats. Lucian took a step closer, his voice dropping to a whisper. "Marry me. Let me protect you." Aiden hated how his heart skipped a beat. He should have said no, should have walked away, but deep down he knew Lucian was right. With a deep breath, he exhaled. One word. Fine. A forced marriage in the public eye. The wedding was grand, extravagant, and completely fake, at least in the eyes of the world. The media exploded when the news broke. Lucian Blackwood, the untouchable billionaire, forced into a marriage? Lucian played his part perfectly. At the grand wedding venue, under the flash of cameras, he stood cold and distant, as if Aiden was nothing more than a burden. The whispers among the elite were brutal. He looked so disinterested. Poor Aiden. It must be humiliating to be unwanted. I heard Lucian was forced into this by the family. Aiden kept his expression blank, but inside, rage burned. Lucian was the one who orchestrated this marriage. He was the one who wanted it. And yet, in front of the world, he pretended as if Aiden was nothing. The vows were exchanged, the ring slipped on, but Lucian never met his eyes. When the priest finally said, "You may kiss the groom," Lucian barely brushed his lips against Aiden's, his posture stiff, making it look like a chore rather than a wedding kiss. The crowd murmured. The headlines were already being written. Lucian Blackwood's forced marriage, a deal, not love. Aiden clenched his fists. If this was how Lucian wanted to play it, fine. He wouldn't show weakness. Two could play this game. But behind closed doors. That night in their shared bedroom, Aiden lay awake, staring at the ceiling. Lucian hadn't spoken to him since the reception. He had been polite in front of the guests, but the moment the doors closed, he became silent, distant. It infuriated Aiden. He turned to confront Lucian, only to freeze. Lucian was watching him. Not with the cold detachment he had shown earlier, but with something else. Aiden's breath caught when Lucian suddenly reached out, his fingers brushing over his stomach. The touch was fleeting, hesitant. But it was there. Then, in the softest whisper, Lucian murmured, "I love you, my angel." Aiden's eyes widened. But before he could react, Lucian had already pulled away, retreating back into the shadows of his carefully built mask. Aiden clenched the sheets. "What the hell are you hiding, Lucian?" Chapter 4. The Love He Couldn't Show. Lucian sat in his study, a glass of whiskey untouched in his hand. The dim glow of the city lights poured through the massive windows, casting long shadows across the room. But his mind wasn't on the city. It was on Aiden, his husband, his angel, the one person he had always wanted, even before that night. Lucian had fallen for Aiden long before fate pushed them together in this chaotic way. It had started as an interest, a quiet admiration from afar. Aiden was everything Lucian was not: bright, passionate, full of life. An alpha who defied expectations, someone who never backed down from a challenge. Lucian had known from the beginning that Aiden was his. But love had no place in his world. Lucian was a man surrounded by enemies, ruthless people who would do anything to destroy him. Aiden, as strong as he was, would never be safe if they knew how much he meant to Lucian. So Lucian had planned differently. He had carefully thought of a way to bring Aiden into his life, to court him, to slowly make him his. They would have been a couple, building a life together in secret until it was safe to reveal to the world. He had pictured it so many times. Aiden standing beside him, proud and happy, their children running through the halls of their home, a true family, one that Lucian had never allowed himself to dream of before Aiden. But fate was cruel. One night, one mistake, a single moment of weakness, of passion too strong to resist, had changed everything. And now, instead of a loving, natural relationship, Aiden was forced into marriage with him, forced into a situation where Lucian had to pretend he didn't care. Because his enemies were watching. They were waiting for a weakness, waiting for something to use against him. If they discovered the truth, that Aiden was the love of his life, that their unborn children were his greatest treasure, they would not hesitate to strike. So Lucian played his role. He ignored Aiden in public. He let the world believe this marriage was nothing but a burden to him. But every night, when Aiden was asleep, he let himself break. Lucian would watch him, trace his fingers over Aiden's stomach, whisper words he could never say when Aiden was awake. "I love you, my angel." And one day soon, when all his enemies were gone, when it was safe, he would show Aiden the love he had always meant to give him. Chapter 5. The Truth Behind His Coldness. Aiden clenched his fists as he watched Lucian from across the grand bedroom. The man sat near the fireplace, one hand gripping a glass of whiskey, his usual mask of indifference firmly in place. But Aiden had had enough. Enough of Lucian's cold attitude. Enough of the distance. Enough of hearing words of love only when he was asleep. Taking a deep breath, Aiden marched forward. Lucian. Lucian barely looked at him. What is it? Aiden's jaw tightened. Why do you do this? Lucian arched a brow. Do what? Aiden took a shaky breath. Why do you act like I don't exist in front of others? Like this marriage means nothing to you? When at night, you hold me close and call me your angel? His voice wavered, but he forced himself to continue. Why do you pretend to be cold when I know you're the one who wanted this marriage in the first place? Lucian stilled. For a long moment, there was only silence, the tension thick and suffocating. Then Aiden saw it. A crack in Lucian's carefully built mask. His fingers tightened around his glass, his breathing uneven. He didn't answer. He couldn't. Aiden stepped closer, his voice softer now. Lucian, do you regret this? Do you regret me? The question shattered something inside Lucian. Before Aiden could react, Lucian was in front of him, gripping him tightly, burying his face into Aiden's shoulder. No, Lucian whispered, his voice breaking. Never. Aiden froze. He had never seen Lucian like this, so vulnerable, so raw. Lucian's entire body trembled as he held Aiden like he was terrified to let go. I love you, he confessed, his voice desperate. I always have. Aiden's breath hitched. Then why? Because I can't lose you. Lucian pulled back just enough for Aiden to see his face, his silver eyes glassy with unshed tears. My enemies are watching. If they knew how much you mean to me, they would destroy you. They would take you, hurt you, kill you, just to break me. His voice cracked, the weight of his fears spilling out. So I had to act like you were nothing to me. I had to pretend. But every time I do, it kills me. Aiden's chest ached. All this time, Lucian had been protecting him. Lucian let out a shaky breath. I wanted you, Aiden. Not like this, not forced, not trapped in a marriage where I have to act like a monster to keep you safe. His grip on Aiden's waist tightened. I had planned to take things slow, to court you properly. We were supposed to be happy. We were supposed to be a family. Aiden felt a tear slip down his own cheek. He had misunderstood everything. Lucian was never pushing him away. He was shielding him. Aiden gently cupped Lucian's face, wiping away the tears that had finally escaped. You idiot, he whispered. You've been carrying all of this alone? Lucian let out a broken laugh. I didn't have a choice. Aiden shook his head. You do now. Lucian blinked. What? Aiden smiled softly. You don't have to do this alone anymore. We'll fight them together. Lucian stared at him, disbelief and love warring in his eyes. Then, for the first time in what felt like forever, he truly let go. He kissed Aiden, not as a duty, not as an act, but as a man desperately in love. Aiden kissed him back, pouring all his emotions into it. This marriage may have started from a mistake, but they were never a mistake. And together, they would win. Chapter 6. The Beast Unleashed. Months had passed since that night, the night Lucian finally let his mask slip, the night he had confessed his love. In public, they were still cold, still distant. The world believed their marriage was nothing more than a forced contract, but behind closed doors, it was different. Aiden had never known love could feel this intense, this consuming. Lucian treated him like he was the most precious thing in the world. His touch gentle, his whispers soft, his kisses filled with devotion. Every night he would cradle Aiden's growing belly, pressing reverent kisses against it. Their love blossomed, and so did their unborn child. But peace never lasts long. The kidnapping. It happened on a rainy afternoon. Aiden had stepped out of the estate for a short drive, wanting some fresh air. He was in his 9th month, just weeks away from giving birth. Lucian had been overly protective, refusing to let him out of sight, but Aiden had convinced him that he would be fine with security. He never made it back home. Lucian's world stopped when he got the call. Sir, Aiden has been taken. Lucian didn't breathe, didn't move. The glass in his hand shattered, whiskey spilling over the desk. For a moment, there was silence. Then, Lucian Blackwood lost his mind. The wrath of the Enigma. Lucian had planned to take his enemies down legally. He had spent years gathering evidence, preparing to expose their crimes to the world. But when they touched his husband, his child, he snapped. The city trembled under his wrath. Within hours, his men had tracked down the location, an abandoned warehouse on the outskirts of the city. Lucian didn't wait. He didn't strategize. He didn't care. He stormed in alone, and he slaughtered them all. Merciless, ruthless, feral. He didn't give them a chance to beg, didn't give them a chance to breathe. He tore through them like a beast unleashed from its chains. Blood coated his hands, his suit, the ground beneath him. His enemies had feared him before. Now, they worshipped death in his name. Saving his angel, Lucian reached the last room, his body aching, his heart screaming. He kicked down the door, his breath catching when he saw Aiden, tied to a chair, a hand protectively resting over his stomach. His angel. Aiden's eyes widened at the sight of Lucian, his suit soaked in blood, his silver eyes burning with fury and desperation. Lucian didn't speak, didn't hesitate. He rushed to him, untied him, and pulled him into his arms. Aiden clung to him, his body trembling. "I knew you'd come," he whispered. Lucian tightened his grip, burying his face into Aiden's neck. "I will always come for you," he swore. "Always." Aiden let out a shaky breath. "Lucian? The baby?" Lucian's heart stopped. Aiden groaned in pain, clutching his stomach. Lucian pulled back, panic flashing in his eyes. "Not now. Not here." Without a second thought, he carried Aiden out, his enemy's blood still dripping from his hands. The final blow. As Aiden was rushed to the hospital, Lucian delivered his final attack. While his men cleaned up the mess, Lucian exposed everything. Every crime, every illegal operation, every dirty secret. His enemies had kidnapped his husband. Now they were nothing. The media went wild. Police raided properties. Businesses collapsed overnight. The entire underworld shook at Lucian Blackwood's revenge. And in the midst of it all, Aiden gave birth to their child. The aftermath. Lucian sat by Aiden's hospital bed, holding their newborn in his arms. A little boy with his father's silver eyes and his mother's strength. Aiden stirred awake, exhaustion clear on his face. His gaze softened when he saw Lucian, a real, genuine smile appearing. Lucian leaned down, pressing a kiss to Aiden's forehead. "It's over," he murmured. "You're safe." Aiden reached for their child, his fingers brushing against Lucian's. "We're safe," he corrected. Lucian met his gaze. No more masks, no more distance. And for the first time in his life, he felt truly free. Epilogue. The world shall know. The world had always known Lucian Blackwood as an untouchable force. Cold, distant, ruthless. But today, they would know the truth. Lucian stood before the cameras in a tailored black suit, his silver eyes as piercing as ever. The world had waited for his statement after his enemies had been wiped from existence. And finally, he spoke. The world questioned my marriage. The world called it forced, unwanted, a mistake. Lucian exhaled, his gaze sharp, his expression unreadable. Then, with the faintest smirk, he continued, "The world was wrong." The reporters whispered among themselves, shocked at his words, but Lucian wasn't finished. "Aiden Blackwood is my husband. He is the love of my life, the father of my children, the one I would destroy entire empires for. Everything I did, every cold word, every distant glance, was to protect him from my enemies. But now, there is no more reason to hide." Lucian turned, his gaze softening as Aiden stepped onto the stage. He was radiant, dressed in an elegant suit, standing tall beside Lucian with their 3-year-old son in his arms. Aiden smiled proudly. "Meet our son, Leon Blackwood." The cameras flashed wildly, reporters gasping. Lucian Blackwood, the untouchable billionaire Enigma, was a husband and a father. And the biggest shock of all? He had loved Aiden all along. Lucian placed a hand on Aiden's waist, pulling him close. No more pretending. No more hiding. Now the world will know who truly owns my heart. Years later, Lucian sat in his office, typing away at his laptop, when Aiden stormed in. Lucian raised a brow, amused. "What's wrong, my angel?" Aiden glared. "Who was that man talking to you at the gala last night?" Lucian smirked. "A business partner?" Aiden huffed. "He touched your arm." Lucian leaned back in his chair, crossing his arms. "Are you jealous?" Aiden crossed his arms as well. "I'm your husband. No one should be touching you but me." Lucian chuckled. The once dominant alpha now completely possessive over him. Lucian stood, walking over to Aiden and tilting his chin up. "You're adorable when you're jealous," he murmured before kissing him softly. Aiden melted into it, but then suddenly pulled away. Lucian frowned. "What is it?" Aiden bit his lip, hesitating before whispering, "I'm pregnant again." Lucian's entire world stilled. He stared at Aiden, processing the words before his hand instinctively reached for Aiden's stomach. "Twins," Aiden added, smiling. For a long moment, Lucian couldn't speak. Then, he pulled Aiden into his arms, holding him tightly. No words could express the happiness flooding his heart. Happily ever after. The world still feared Lucian Blackwood, the ruthless, untouchable Enigma. But behind closed doors, he was just a man hopelessly in love. Aiden had become his entire world, and now their family was growing once more. Lucian placed a protective hand over Aiden's stomach, whispering, "No one will ever touch my family again." Aiden smiled because he knew it was true. No matter what happened, no matter who tried to stand in their way, they had already won.